Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're kicking off Chapter 1 and going right back to the beginning. We're going to lay the foundation for what's been called the most practical of the academic disciplines, a skill that really shapes every single part of our lives.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll tackle the big one. What is communication, really? Then, we'll take a quick trip through history to see how it's all evolved. After that, we'll map out the 5 main forms it takes, break down how the whole process actually works, and we'll wrap up with why this is, hands down, one of the most important tools we have.
All right, let's kick things off. We're going to start with a question that sounds super simple on the surface, but getting it right is the key to understanding everything else.
I mean, we do this stuff all day, every day, without even thinking about it, right? We're texting, we're talking, we're gesturing, but if you really want to master it, you first have to get a handle on what it actually is.
So here's the textbook definition. Now, the 2 words you really want to latch onto here are process and generating meaning. What that tells you is that communication isn't just a single event, like firing off a sentence. No, it's a dynamic, back-and-forth process where we are actively creating meaning together, and it's all shaped by the context we're in.
You know, to really get a handle on communication today, it helps to see where it all came from, both as this fundamental thing we do as humans and as something people actually study. Okay, so look at this. The thing that just jumps out at you here is the incredible acceleration. I mean, we spent about 150,000 years in the talking era. And then in just the last few hundred years, and let's be real, especially the last few decades, the speed of change has been just explosive. And it wasn't just the technology that was changing, right? The actual study of communication was evolving too. The formal study really goes way back to ancient Greece with thinkers like Aristotle. And they weren't just thinking about chit-chat. They were breaking down the art of rhetoric, how to speak persuasively, ethically, in really important settings like a courtroom. It just goes to show from the very beginning, communication has been tied to being a citizen.
Okay, so now let's look at the different forms communication can take, because it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It operates on a scale from what's happening inside your own head to what's broadcast across the entire planet.
So you can see how it scales up. It starts with intrapersonal. That's just you, talking to yourself inside your head. Then there's interpersonal, which is your classic one-on-one conversation. From there, you get group communication, then public speaking to an audience, and finally, the big one, mass communication, reaching millions through media.
All right, so we know what it is, and we know the different forms it comes in, but how does the process itself work? Well, our ideas about that have changed a lot over time, and scholars use a few different models to explain it. The first way people thought about it was super simple, basically a one-way street. It's called the transmission model, and you can think of it like throwing a baseball. One person, the sender, turns a thought into words, that's the encoding part, and then just kind of launches it at the receiver. The entire focus is on the send. It's neat, it's tidy, but it doesn't really capture what a real conversation feels like, does it?
Because, of course, communication is almost never a one-way street. We react, we respond, we don't just throw words at people and walk away.
And that's where the interaction model comes in. Now this shows a 2-way process. See how the arrows go both ways? You send a message, and you get feedback. And this is cool. It also brings in the idea of context. You know, things like, is the room freezing? Are you in a bad mood? All that stuff actually affects the conversation.
But even that wasn't the whole story. The final model is the most complex, but it's also the one that gets closest to our messy, dynamic reality. And this brings us to the transaction model. Here's the real game changer. We are sending and receiving information at the exact same time. Think about it. When you're talking, you're also watching the other person's face, their body language, and you're adjusting what you say on the fly. In this view, we're not just swapping info. We are co-creating our realities and relationships together.
So, all these models and definitions might feel a little academic. But here's the thing. This whole complex process is tied directly to some of our most basic, fundamental needs as people. I mean, communication is basically the tool we use for, well, everything. It helps meet our physical needs, like yelling for help if you're in trouble, our instrumental needs, trying to get a job or just asking for directions, our relational needs, which is how we make friends and build families, and our identity needs. It lets us show the world who we are.
And that really brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. We don't just use communication to talk about our lives, we literally build our lives with it. Our friendships, our communities, our entire sense of who we are, it's all constructed, conversation by conversation.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. If every conversation, every text, every interaction is an act of creation, that's a huge responsibility. But it's also an incredible opportunity. So, what reality are you choosing to build today?